And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Good evening. Good sir.
Blake, I'm excited for today's show. We get to dig into USC. I get to hide behind my LSU hat, and they don't need to know that I'm a biased Notre Dame fan. I can't wait. This is gonna be a fun one.
All right. Well, see, let's start off with this since you're already out of the gate ready to shoot.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, this is the show that you're going to get quoted in. This is the show that you're going to say something absolutely outlandish.
No, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to be.
Have you seen the USC fans attacking our dude, Josh Pate?
Well, it's really funny. They attack him for not saying anything. They attack him for just not being as positive as they want him to be, which I find really funny. I feel like I got all of it out of my system when we did the hot seat tracker for a couple of those coaches. So I don't think I'm going to go as crazy, but I also like to not spoil or give out my lead already. I mean, they can't win more than 9 games next year. I don't think that they can. It's not a bad season for them. It's a new conference. It's a lot of travel that they're going to have to do, but they got some tough ones. And there's a lot of things they got to figure out roster-wise.
So this will be the second time that I've broken down the Trojans in 2 weeks. So on obviously the LSU side, I planned it out where we do every Power 5 opponent every single week, and then we'll wrap up with some other SEC teams that we don't hit in the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to tell you, this is the second time of doing it. Here's a hot take. I am fully with you on your thought on not winning or not maybe the ceiling getting to 9 wins. However, I will caution when I've done them multiple times in 2 weeks. Joe, I think that they could have one of the biggest defensive turnarounds in the P5 or P4 that we've seen. When you add that many sacks to your roster from the portal, I do think it's a big deal. It's a very big stretch, right? Like, I mean,
right.
You're going from one of the worst to now you have DeLeone Lynn, but he's brought over some high-quality kids from the portal that are experienced and talented. Joe, I still think that they have a lot of pieces offensively. So, with that being said, the question really becomes what to really make of USC, because I really do. Like, look, if you told me today they get blown out by Oregon, nobody's going to sneeze at that. But, Joe, if I would tell you today.
They don't play Oregon.
I'm okay.
Sorry. I'm just clarifying.
Right. All right. Who do they play that's big on their schedule?
Michigan.
All right.
Notre Dame's probably the biggest candidate for a game that could get ugly because it got ugly last year when they had Caleb Williams.
Well, then that game's in South Bend. Here becomes the question.
This one's in LA, yeah.
That one is in LA. Joe, what if they beat Michigan?
And it's an early season game too, but it's at Michigan.
It is, but can Michigan score enough? Because I do think defensively they are light years better than where they were a year ago. Light years.
Well,
Joe, they added 307 tackles from the portal.
Yeah, they also lost a couple of kids too, which is going to be a little bit tricky.
Losing Tackett Curtis means nothing to me.
I would argue that when they had troubles tackling, I think that losing a young kid who was still figuring things out, I think that that's a problem. But I'm optimistic.
The Arnold brothers alone are going to be massive for them.
I'm optimistic, though, because of the DeLeone Lynn hire. And for those who remember, I had a very high ranking for DeLeone Lynn. I included him in my top 5 defensive coordinators. You gave me shit for that. I think that that's enough for them to be better because it's not like UCLA was filled with 5-star defensive linemen. They picked a bunch of kids from, that were undervalued and underappreciated and turned them into really good football players, and even turned one into a first-round pick in Lietu Latu, who was a medically retired transfer of all people. So, yeah, I think that there's there's a path for them to be a competent, good football team. I'm not going to be in the camp of saying that they're 7-5, like I think some people are.
Yeah, I don't. I think that is very egregious or egregious, because I do think, Joe, I look at their wide receiver room, and look, we're getting way too far ahead.
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk about now. Also, we'll go to the Sun Devil state, but not talk about the Sun Devils. We'll talk about, I'm throwing a shot at Arizona. We are going to talk about the Arizona Wildcats, who do have a new head coach, but do return a lot of production on their offensive side of the football.
Yeah, this is a really tricky one too. Both these teams today, I think, are going to be a real testing of the ball knowledge that we have, because Arizona brings back potentially 4 first-round picks. Oh no, 3 in a day 2 guy in Fafita, but I don't know what to make of Brent Brennan, man. I just don't know if I can feel pretty good about him stepping right in and them not missing a step. It could be a bumpy ride with some of the games that they have next year.
In fairness, nobody knew what Jed Fish could really do until Fafita became the quarterback.
Well, I push back on that, because after year 1, Fish was somebody who, you listen to a lot of like journalist podcasts and you read a lot of articles. They were saying, like, watch out for what Jed Fish is doing. Jed Fish is turning things around. He's a guy that everybody's talking about as a next to be the big hire, and it just happened sooner than we anticipated.
And
People
then he
thought
went
it
on
was a couple
the road
years
and
away.
lost to Mississippi State. So again, now, like,
I don't know what that has to do with what I'm talking about here. He still had a great year last year with a team that had
he
no
made a
business
run.
being good.
He made a run, but the quarterback and the wide receiver he made a run with are still there. By the way,
would argue some of that is offensive proficiency and decision making on his end.
I would give that to Fafita for the decision making.
Well, sorry, coaching, play calling, offensive scheme. I mean, Fish is a great offensive coach.
We'll see. I think you're really high, but watch Brennan Turner right around and slam dunk right in your face. I'm just saying, don't.
I'll eat a hat if.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
My diet's going to consistently be all hats at one point eventually.
It probably will. Also, we'll wrap up with Bryan Harsin, and we'll probably talk in the beginning very quickly about logos being admissible for on field for college teams. So we'll talk about that. Bryan Harsin being very sensitive, and what does it say about having logos not only on the field, but Joe, with that being said, will they now be on the players' jerseys as well, which I think will be a big thing too?
Yeah, corporatification. God, I don't know why I struggled with that word so much. I mean, everything's coming corporate now, man. I think it's a good thing. I know some people hate it because it's taken away the integrity of the sport, but if you want more money to be pumped into your team and you want your team to have deep pockets to pay these players now, you should be rooting for a Canes logo on your jersey or whatever.
Don't use Canes. Leave Canes out of this.
You act like Canes isn't going to be on the LSU jerseys. You act like that's not. Or Tyson's going to be on the Arkansas jersey. That's the other one.
Probably, but don't just single-handedly say Raising Canes, man.
I have no sourcing. I'm just throwing that out there. It would make a lot of sense.
More than likely it's going to be Raising Canes. Okay, like it more than likely would be. But Raising Canes can only be on one jersey. One love. We're a Raising Canes family. Screw Chick-fil-A. All right. Let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all those groups. If you're on Facebook, share to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. We missed Cody's super chat from the last episode, so we apologize about that, Cody. But he sends a $9.99 super chat in here, Joe. Before we get to the break, he says, talking USC with college football playoffs going to 12 teams. If USC does not get in, is Lincoln Riley on the hot seat for not getting in? How many coaches are on the hot seat by not getting in?
The second part of that question is kind of a loaded one, but the first part was what we talked about and what springboarded the hot seat conversation, I don't think that Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat right now, but if they miss the 12-team playoff, yeah, I would say so. I think that we're now in an era where getting into the college football playoff is extremely accomplishable by all of the top brands in the sport. And USC is supposed to be the champion out west. They're supposed to be the leading force of the Western teams. And if you can't get in the first year of the inception of this, in the third year of you at your program, yeah, I think that Lincoln Riley, his seat is definitely going to be hot if they fall short, even if it is a 9-3 season.
I don't know.
Come on, man. It's not as hard to get into the playoff as it used to be.
That's very fair. Very fair. I just don't know if I'm going to say that he would be on the hot seat because they're going to owe him a lot of money. Like at what point, like what part of the realistic 10-year, $100 million contract do we start putting him on the hot seat? Now, I mean, it's a lot of like Jimbo Fisher. I mean, Joe, it took 7 years to fire Jimbo Fisher. 7. So, I mean, like I get what he's saying and I get what you're saying. But from the time that Jimbo, and he had one good season in that run, but I mean, let's just be realistic here, right? Like, I mean, Jimbo could have been fired after year 3. Now, year 4 goes into COVID. He goes 9-1, so it saves him, okay, in a very awkward season. But it took probably, 7 is generous. It took 5 years to fire him, right? Because, again, how that contract goes. That'd be like firing Brian Kelly. I mean, like, Joe, these contracts are ridiculous. So I get where the question becomes. I think that we need to, for what it's worth, put a little bit more context than maybe we did in the past because of how massive these contracts are, too.
I get what you're saying, and I know that we can't always point.
No, they owe him $70 million. We
can't always point to Jimbo Fisher as an example of why a coach could get fired way before his contract is up. But at the same time, if you hire a guy and you spend all of this money for him to succeed and he's just producing slightly above average results, like what was that worth it? Is it worth sitting around and waiting for more years for the status quo? A lot of alumni are impatient. Maybe USC's not as impatient as Texas A&M.
They're not paying $60 to $70 million to fire him. I'm sorry. They won't do that.
Clip that right now. Let's find out.
Okay, you know how I know that they won't?
How?
Clay Helton.
How many years
did Clay Helton have? They refused to fire him a year before when he was owed like $20 million.
How long was he at USC? I do remember that. I do remember they gave him a little bit longer. He was there for 6 years. But wait, but Helton had, did he have a year that he won the conference one of the years? Am I crazy? 2016, they won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, but he got fired in 2021.
But okay, so in his second year, they won the Rose Bowl.
But that's not what I'm trying to say here,
but
though.
That's a part of the conversation because
no, they didn't fire him because they owed him $20 million.
Yes, but he accomplished something, so that automatically adds in a cushion. It gives a little bit more time. It's just like with Jimbo, where he had one good year.
I mean, I'm just asking: are we going to act like the first year of Lincoln Riley didn't happen?
What did Lincoln Riley accomplish in the first year besides Caleb Williams winning a Heisman? They lost to Tulane. He hasn't accomplished anything.
They had 7 opt-outs on defense. Does Oklahoma
against
look worse?
Tulane? You're not deep enough against Tulane?
Does Bob Stoops look worse for losing to Boise State?
No, Boise State was a way better team than that Tulane team was. That Boise State team was good.
Name one player.
Jesus Christ. What's the Case Keenum was the quarterback.
No, Case Keenum was not the quarterback.
It wasn't?
No.
That was still one of the best G5 teams of all time.
You were like 7 when that happened.
That was, I still remember the game
that happened at the end on the 2-point
conversion. Statue of Liberty.
Okay, do you remember what happened before the Statue of Liberty?
Not well enough because
again, a hook and ladder that went 90. All right, trust me, I remember.
That was one of the best G5 teams ever that they lost to.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Like Lincoln Riley hasn't accomplished anything. Clay Helton accomplished more in his first 3 years, first 2 years
those
than he
years
did.
at TCU with Andy Dalton and those boys were rolling dudes. Rolling dudes. They were not in the Big 12 then. They were a G5 program. They were in the WAC. Yeah.
I don't remember that. I thought that they were in the Big 12 at that.
No, sir.
Look, I think it's.
Remember the purple jerseys and the black pants?
I remember them.
And they would play the same drum it sounded like they were doing the chomp from Florida State. Trust me, I remember.
Don't distract from me proving you wrong.
Thank you, Alex. It was the Mountain West. I said the WAC. But nevertheless, they were still in there. All right. Let's not argue about that. See, we're already on this USC thing. All I'm saying is, if the dude goes 7-5 this year, you're not going to fire him and owe him $60 million. It's just not.
No, wait. That's not what I said. I'm not saying you fire him at the end of the season. I'm saying he enters the hot seat officially going into 2025.
You know where
year 4.
You know where you can get the odds on that?
Bet online.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. BetOnline.
We're back.
Me.
Yeah, you hit the ad. All right.
That was you.
No, I wasn't even touching my mouse. How could I hit it? All right. Joey, continue on our quest for deep dives. We will hold off for that for just a minute because I just remembered. Ross Dellinger reporting that schools are now able to put logos of businesses on the field. The jerseys on the logos are also being discussed. Quick thoughts on there being corporate logos on college football fields?
Yeah, I'll keep this very succinct. I mean, I think it's necessary in the way that the game is rapidly evolving. I get tired by people complaining about how everything is becoming money driven and corporate and all that. This isn't high school sports. This isn't the version of college football that we originally fell in love with, but I don't think that it's hurting the game. It's a logo that's giving your school millions of dollars. There's opportunities for your school to grow and to develop and to put that money towards its roster and resources for the rosters. I think this is important. I think it's really important. And I know people complain about advertising being in everything that we do these days, but in any sport, I think that there should be corporate logos on everything. I mean, money is money. Yeah. It's important for growth.
The NBA Finals start tonight. They'll have a logo on their jersey. I mean, it doesn't really stop anything. I will just say this. It is very ironic to me that the NCAA will approve schools to put logos on the field in their jerseys, but still try to find ways to regulate NIL. Don't ridicule me. Don't pop on me. I find it ironic. So because
wait. The reason why that they're now doing this is because of a direct result of them now needing money to pay for said NIL.
You really think schools are just going to use that money to pay players?
They need a lot of these schools are hurting for the settlement money. A lot of them are going to have trouble paying that settlement money.
Well, that's not our problem. But all I'm saying,
it's their problem to figure out.
All I'm saying is, think about it like this: if you're a player. Okay, think about it as if you're a player. Hey, the schools can put logos on the field and on the jersey that I wear. Meanwhile, every month, at least once or twice a month, somebody with some kind of status with the NCAA or a conference commissioner, a head coach, whatever, comes out there and says, we need to regulate about how much money these kids can make. And by the way, Joe, look, I talk to a lot of players that we do deals with all the time. And that's what they talk about, right? Like when they see this thing from Ross Dellinger and they say that, all they're saying is, oh, wait a minute. It took you a month to go into a meeting and approve this, right? Like now you're always telling, like they feel like the villain. It's all I'm trying to say. I do think it's ironic. You can get mad at me for whatever you want. I don't care. It's blah to me. I don't care if Raising Cane's is on the field. You brought up Raising Cane's earlier, being on there for LSU. You were taking a shot at the best chicken in America. Okay? It doesn't matter to me. It legitimately doesn't. And you know what they're going to do too? Get ready for this. There's going to be sponsors for stadiums.
Yeah.
Like not just
so
logos
much money
on
to
the
come from that. Yeah.
Right. So it is what it is, man. It doesn't bother me. I know that some purists in college football, it will bother, but it is what it is at this point. It doesn't, I don't know. I'm done having the conversation about money at this exact moment. Because that's all that this is.
Yeah.
It's all that it has to do with.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing really much else to dive in with it because you're right. This is all financially driven.
All financially driven. So it is what it is. I have no, put it on there, put it on their jersey. It doesn't bother me either way. It's not going to stop me from watching. Now the real question becomes, does the patch go on the NCAA game when this comes on?
That's I would assume so.
We'll see. Okay. All right, Joe, we continue on our deep dives around college football tonight. Today, we land on USC. Let me go ahead and start with this. I have talked about USC twice. This will be my second time in 2 weeks. And we talked about this just a minute, okay, earlier. But I want to bring it back up. This is not the USC team that I think people are going to be expecting. I think people need to be a little bit cautious. Here's why I do think teams need to be a little bit cautious. I do think that they made one of the best hires defensively of all offseason, hiring DeLeone Lynn from UCLA. I also think that they got a lot better personnel-wise on that defense. Alex Grinch has been a guy that when he was at Oklahoma with Lincoln and at USC that a lot of people questioned, did Lincoln Riley really care about defense? Well, Joe, I'm going to tell you something. They've added a lot of really good pieces on the defensive side of the football, and they've really got, how do I want to say this? Overnight, they changed schematically on everything that they do. DeLeone Lynn is a guy that's going to send pressure at you all night. I had an offensive coordinator that I talked to this week tell me when watching DeLeone Lynn on defense, it's very NFL-ish, like how they just come at you for all different types of directions. They're going to blitz a lot. We saw that also in their spring game. What I think about USC is, Joe, I do think that they are the, how do I want to say this without being hyperbolic? USC to me might be one of the more intriguing teams in college football because I think people expect, oh, it's just Lincoln Riley. Their defense is going to suck. And that might be the case. But when I look at them and I say to myself, they added guys like Nate Clifton from Vandy. And everybody's like, that guy's from Vandy. Okay, well, he was one of their better defenders. And one of the better defenders, if you don't watch the film, take out the stats, even with some of the stats, was one of the better defenders. They added a lot of pieces in their secondary, I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute. And I know offensively they're going to be fine. Joe, I don't know if they're not going to be a little bit more of a handful than people are giving them credit for.
I think you're giving them a little bit too much credit. Now, I have said I am a very big DeLeone Lynn fan, and I think that this is a total 180 from the situation that they had before with Alex Grinch. I do believe that the future direction of this defense is going to be rapidly improving, but you can't improve as much as they need to going into their first year in the Big Ten overnight. It is going to be a multi-year process in order for them to get the bodies to consistently compete with a conference that runs the ball runs multiple tight end sets, will punch you in the mouth every single play. Frankly, a lot of these teams don't even really have the quarterbacks in the Big Ten to air you out. They're going to try and run the football. Teams like Minnesota, teams like Iowa, Rutgers, the teams that we know that have to rely on the ground game to get the ball moving forward because they just don't have the arm talent. This isn't the Pac-12. This isn't the Big 12. It's a very, very different culture that they're going to be facing. With that in mind, though, again, I agree with you. I'm not in the boat, surprisingly, of other people that believe that USC is going to be a shit show this year. After I did my notes, it's clear to me that they did make improvements, and DeLeone Lynn is good enough of a defensive coordinator to make them competent, competitive, physical, and tough. But I just don't know, looking at their schedule, if they've got the juice to go punch for punch with teams on their schedule like Michigan, who they have to travel to, like Wisconsin, like Penn State, who comes to them. Washington's up in the air, and I really don't think that they're going to beat Notre Dame this year because Notre Dame defensively is very, very physical, and they're just not going to match up very well. There's still question marks, but I'm not fully there yet to say USC takes a step forward. This is an 8-4, 9-3 team. Simple as that, because they are stepping into a difficult situation in a new conference.
All right, I'm going to counteract you with one point. Everybody talks about USC. USC can't, the style that they play is not for the Big Ten. I agree with that. Joe, a lot of the teams that they play that I look at right now, Joe, are you 1,000% confident if we believe and we're right that this defense might be better that Penn State can score with them?
Yes.
Penn State can't score with them. If they got in a shootout.
Here's where we're having, this is where I'm like really not on board with. You're overvaluing their offense. Like Miller Moss played one football game, man. Like it's the same thing we did with Jackson Arnold. I can't get into the boat just yet. I got to see the kid play.
No, but
they lost multiple receivers.
But Zachariah Branch is there. They got three guys that are seniors from the portal. You legitimately had Lincoln Riley and DeLeone Lynn going after, excuse me for forgetting his name, but the UCLA wide receiver, 6'3", 220. And it was a dogfight. Georgia gets into the mix. USC winds up winning it. Joe, I'm going to tell you something, and I've been telling you this for months, and everybody has poo-pooed me on this. I don't think that they're better offensively. I do think that they're going to be run better, though. Meaning, I don't think you can replace a Caleb Williams in reference to what he does, okay? If I'm going to give Caleb Williams one thing, you can't replace the talent that he is. But Joe, why does their offense get better when he's out?
Played Louisville in a bowl game where there were multiple players out. The bowl games don't mean anything. We need to stop using the bowl games as context for anything. We need to stop using them as context. They mean nothing.
I will make a bet with you then. Miller Moss is going to be better than you think that he is.
I'm not saying he's going to stink. I think he is perfectly good enough to be slightly above average. Is that the mark for success?
Yeah. If you want to ask the question, can I tell you why? Can I tell you why? Because the
Lincoln's offense, it's not.
Joe, what offense do you think that he runs? What legitimate offense do you think?
But look through the string of guys and the string of quarterbacks that have gone through there. The worst quarterback that he's had was Spencer Rattler, and he got replaced because he wasn't playing good enough for them. And he was playing at a slightly above average level. They lost games that year.
Fair, but you're talking about the one time that he's not been able to legitimately take a quarterback and develop. Because I could also make the argument that he took a kid in Jalen Hurts that legitimately had issues for 3 years. The greatest of all time, and Nick Saban, could not help this kid legitimately be accurate enough. He goes to Lincoln. He's a Heisman contender. By the way,
Jalen Hurts was a physically gifted athlete. Miller Moss is nowhere near that.
Completely missed what I just said. Completely. Do you remember Jalen Hurts when he was at Alabama and he gets replaced by Tua? Why? Because Jalen Hurts has a massive issue at completing simple passes. And in one offseason, he takes him to somewhere. that nobody really, realistically thought that he would get. Joe, they were throwing the ball more than people even realized. They thought that they were going to run it all over the place, and they were going to be a team that's going to legitimately be more of a spread them out, triple option type of team, and they threw the ball all over the place. Look at Jalen Hurts now. You talked to Jalen. He was on a New Heights podcast, talked about Lincoln for 30 minutes. Right, about like everything that he did. I understand what you're saying with Spencer Rattler. That's fine. I also think that if I'm going to make a decision when you have multiple quarterbacks that are in the system, why does Lincoln Riley, of all people, go with Miller Moss?
I also, by the way, that question has not been fully answered yet. Jordan Maeva could still start, and I know that someone's going to come screaming into the comments and tell me I'm a dickhead for saying that, but I don't know.
UNLV for people.
The UNLV kid, I actually would start the UNLV kid over Miller Moss. I think he's a better athlete, and I think he provides a lot more juice for this offense. But,
Joe,
but this goes with what I'm trying to say, though, is that there could potentially be a situation where mid-season Maeva takes over for Miller Moss. I don't think it's as solidified as everyone makes it out to be. Why would you bring in that kid who was an all-conference quality player?
Why would you not go after a bigger high-name kid in the portal if you're Lincoln Riley when Miller Moss just went off? I remind you, Will Howard was a guy that was going to be committing there, and at the last minute, Miller Moss said, no, you will not be coming here.
I don't think we know for certain that his decision to go Ohio State was more based on him wanting to go play for somewhere that was going to compete for a national title.
Stop that. You legitimately had the top people that are reporting and recruiting talking about him committing to USC. The next night, literally the next night, Miller Moss goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and all of a sudden, everybody's like, well, something just happened there. Stop that.
Ohio State swooped in aggressively and quickly on a number of guys.
You're a damn fool. You're a damn fool if you believe that.
Are we forgetting that Ryan, the whole NIL saga that happened this offseason with Ohio State and all the money that flooded in suddenly?
So everybody that was reporting was wrong. Okay.
I don't think that just because a kid was on a visit and was considering it does not mean he was 1,000% committed. I never saw anything that said he was Will Howard is a lock to go.
One reported. I'll never forget it because LSU. I'm just going to be honest with you. LSU was having conversations with Will Howard. Please, God, type in Will Howard USC. See what comes up.
Why would? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
I would. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that if anything, that's more of an implication that how the market perceived Will Howard and how USC probably perceived Will Howard. And then Ohio State was the only school. This is what I'm getting at, though, is that I think
why does Ryan get the benefit or the credit to some extent, and then you have two of the best quarterback coaches in the country going after Will Howard?
I think that the reason why, and this is why I think the most truth of it is that Ohio State was the only program that was going to give him more of a direct commitment that he was probably going to start.
Yeah, because the night after Miller Moss went stupid.
Miller Moss is that. Lincoln Riley is a terrible coach if he makes his decision off of one bowl game that he wants.
No, he's not. But he's seen the kid beat out a 5-star that was there. The kid goes to Boise State. Maybe Malachi Nelson wasn't good enough. Maybe that's fair. But Joe, here's what I do know. Y'all can Rudy Poo on Lincoln Riley all y'all want to. Offensively, even last year included, I think that had a lot to do more with Caleb Williams trying to do too much that people don't want to get him credit for. You legitimately, and me and you both had this conversation about them in Notre Dame. How bad was Caleb Williams? How bad was he?
How bad was the supporting cast around him?
Please just answer one of my questions.
No, because you ask leading questions on the show all of the time. So no, I'm not. I'm tired of answering.
It's not a leading question.
It is a leading question.
Game that was played. He was asshole. Joe, midway through the season, Caleb Williams stopped running the system, and he had no other choice. Lincoln had no other choice. There were videos of him and Caleb getting into it on the sidelines. This offense is going to run smoother now that they're going through a system. There's a reason game plans are enacted. Okay, so
that is such a far more complex.
Lincoln Riley, for the first time
that is a far more complex issue than you're making it out to be. It's not just because Caleb Williams didn't want to run the offense. It is a complex issue that we don't have the context to fully understand. But I think what is important to sit here and say, and I'm going to say it, this might be one of the worst offenses that Lincoln Riley has had except for maybe his first couple of years at Oklahoma, which I can't even remember who was in that grouping off the top of my head. This might be one of the worst offensive groupings that he has. I'm not knocking Zachariah Branch.
Hello.
I'm not knocking Zachariah Branch. I think that he is an incredibly gifted player, but their running back room it's good. I don't think it's as good as some of the playmakers that were there before. Marshawn Lloyd was just a 3rd-round pick. We can't forget that. 3 guys left this offseason. Brendan Rice was drafted. We also had
in the 7th round.
Dorian Singer left in the.
His dad's Jerry Rice. Come on.
Dorian Singer, who was supposed to come in and be, I wasn't a big Brendan Rice fan either. Dorian Singer was supposed to come in and be this huge, big next Jordan Addison type guy. He takes a step backward, transfers to Utah. Mario Williams also transfers to Tulane, I believe. I'm not saying that the offensive grouping is bad, but again, where is the not the improvement, but like, what evidence do we have to say here that this offense is going to be better other than just one bowl game against a bad defense with multiple starters out against Louisville?
Because, and this just my belief, I think Miller Moss or whoever it is will stay inside the offense and run the offense as it is constructed to be run more than Caleb did. You know what made Caleb great in 2021 or 2022, excuse me? What made Caleb really great? Yes, there were highlights of him, the improv. What did he do 95% of the other times?
Improvise.
No, the fuck he did not. You know that that's not true. Stop. You know that that's not true. He
60% of the time he was improvising.
Joe, stop. Come on.
I'm like that. You act like that's not like an insane.
You mean to tell me for over 500 plays he improvised? It was all him and not Lincoln Riley. Meanwhile, we have 2 other Heisman Trophy winners that did this. Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts. Why were those offenses better?
I don't understand what evidence you have to prove to me that Miller Moss.
Baker Mayfield pulled down Georgia's pants in a playoff game and spanked that ass. You want to know why?
But is Miller Moss Baker Mayfield? I don't know that.
You didn't know who Baker Mayfield was before he got to Oklahoma.
Nobody knew who Miller Moss was before he suited up and played in a goddamn bowl game. And he's got a bunch of sophomores, true sophomores, as most of his offensive weapons this year, who are all very gifted. I will say that I like Deuce Robinson.
You just love Notre Dame too much. You hate USC too much.
No, don't throw that.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me? I got so mad I smacked the table. Don't just throw the Notre Dame thing in there. Don't just
You're a Notre Dame fan.
No, I'm an LSU fan. You can't see the hat. USC
You're a Notre Dame fan.
Shut up.
The truth is, all right, you can disagree with me. I think that they're going to run better offensively. I think things will get smoother. By the way, you talked about the running back room. Woody Marks is there.
Woody Marks is a good football player, but like, are we acting like that? This is
Woody Marks was running dudes flat over.
You have this horniness for Mississippi State. I don't understand what it is.
No, okay. Please, God,
he's a good football player. Did the words "bad football player" come out of my mouth?
I think him and Lincoln's offense might be scary.
Okay, I want to just get back to. We're going in a lot of different directions here. I think
Riley Leonard threw 4 interceptions versus USC.
They didn't play USC.
I don't know, but I'm seeing.
Oh, he's trying to say that when they play USC, that's not going to happen. To succinctly say what I've been trying to say, I think their defense improves I think it's going to take time. And you know what? They've recruited really well, better than my expectation along the defensive line for the 2025 class.
I agree with that.
I give credit where credit is due.
I think they've done better on the offensive line. I think their center and 2 interior guards are going to be a little bit better than people expect.
Monheim's is a pretty good player for them, and I want to break down his tape from a draft perspective, but he's been highly touted for multiple years at the college level.
Yep.
I stick with, if I were to pin a projection on this, Blake, 9-3 is the ceiling, but I think hiring D'Anton Lynn aggressively raises the floor to where the worst that they're going to be is 8-4. I don't think that the floor.
So then, who do they upset?
Well, I just named their most difficult matchups. I mean, I think that if you go 9-3, I see the losses as Michigan, traveling to Michigan, to Penn State at home, and to Notre Dame at home. And
so
I think
them beating LSU in the opener.
Oh fuck! I forgot to play LSU. I don't know why I always do this. I write down the schedules and then
you always miss one big team.
Yeah, I always miss one of the.
All right, I would concede with you. I don't think Michigan is a foregone conclusion to what you're making it, because I know defensively they're going to be very good, but the talk out of Michigan right now, they're not very. I mean, this Alex Orji thing has gotten very weird.
I would argue. Well, his name's Orgy. It's a terrible joke. It's a bad joke.
Really bad, but
Penn State, I would argue, is probably the better situation for them to steal, because Penn State has to travel cross country to come play them. It's a little bit of a tougher trip. You know, they got to come their way and all that good stuff. So maybe that's the one that they steal there.
The game that worried me more than that, or more than Penn State at home. You know what game worries me like the most?
Mm-hmm.
Maryland. Can I tell you why? Dude, Joe, that's a 4-hour time difference. To them, when they're playing at 11 East Coast to West Coast, they're playing at Maryland.
It's a 3-hour time difference. Where'd you get the 4 from?
Maryland's in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
No, we're
2 to Central time.
I'm in the Central time zone.
Like, I've been in multiple time zones in 3 days in the past week.
When you're in New Jersey, you're 4 hours. There's a 4-hour difference. Is there not?
No, are we really? We debate everything. We debate time zones on this show. We're debating the correctness of time zones. It's 3 hours. All I do is communicate.
No, we're the Central time zone.
Right, 2 hours.
What time is it where you're at right now?
It is 4:40. In New Jersey right now, in Maryland, it is 7:30, and it's 6:30 your time.
Regardless, that's a 3-hour time difference.
No, that's not going to be a big deal. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Maryland sucks, man. Maryland's a nothing team. Will that game be close because they're a little hungover having to travel and play them, and maybe it's an early game?
If they play at noon, that's like playing what? For them,
9 a.m.
9 a.m. And they got to travel all the way across the country.
I'm not buying that. I don't think that's going to be that hard of a game.
All right. So
I would argue
if they're 9-3, to your point, they're going to have to upset LSU, Michigan, Penn State.
I think it's Michigan or Penn State.
Washington or Notre Dame.
Washington's going to.
So how are you going to talk like that about their offense and say that they can be an 8-4, 9-3 team? Because of these teams that you've listed, they're going to have to beat 3 of them.
Because I think a lot of times when I talk,
let me cook. If you're going to say that they're 9-3, that means that they have to win 3 games versus Notre Dame, Washington, Penn State, Michigan, and LSU.
Because Blake, because I come on here and I'm not going to blow every team that we come on here and talk about. If there are deficiencies and question marks, I, as a host, and wanting to create compelling content, let's peel back the curtain for a second, create compelling content, and going to do the due diligence of making the argument of why things will not work. 3 losses in 2024 is a big deal.
You've made that point. But
For Lincoln Riley, that's a big deal. He's supposed to be one of the best coaches in the sport.
Okay, and I'm asking you I'm asking you, how can you talk about their offense like that and they're not going to be as good as you think that they are, and then you're going to tell me that they're probably going to be a 9-3 team and that they're going to
it's Lincoln Riley. Because it's Lincoln Riley, and everyone expects Lincoln Riley and USC to be so good offensively.
Moss more than likely has 30-plus touchdown passes, that they have a pretty decent running game, and defensively that they have improved, but not that great.
I'm trying to paint the picture, Blake, that what's going to happen is that they're going to have easy times against the rest of these Big Ten teams, but they're going to really struggle offensively when they get punched in the mouth with teams with good defensive lines and good linebackers and good secondaries, like Michigan, like when they play Penn State, like when they play Notre Dame, and when they play LSU. That's the picture I'm trying to paint, because frankly, there is a talent gap that is pretty obvious between those top Big Ten teams and the middle of the pack teams.
I don't
USC is supposed to be top.
I really don't think that there's a massive gap between those two teams offensively.
What two teams?
USC and Michigan.
That's not what I said. I'm saying that there's a massive gap between the top teams in Michigan and like a team like Nebraska. There's a pretty big gap in talent.
Fair. But we're going to be talking about Michigan, and there's a massive issue about them possibly taking a massive step back offensively.
Yeah, but they have multiple top 50 picks on defense. Like, their defense is going to be insane, and they have an NFL defensive coordinator. They're gonna scratch and claw their way to win most of their football games.
Elk says, hold up, has Blake gone through thinking that the West Coast is 4 hours behind? Actually, yes.
These central time zoners, you guys live in some like bubble that you just...
It legitimately is the best time zone of all the time zones.
Pacific time's the worst. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, because think about it like this. Tonight's NBA draft will start at 7:30 Central Standard Time.
Is the draft tonight?
I mean, not the draft, the NBA finals.
Playoffs. Excuse me. Playoffs.
The finals. If you're on the East Coast, it starts at 8:30. That sucks.
Yeah, but y'all got nothing going on in Central Time.
Yeah, you're right. It only has produced 10 of the last 14 national champions. Actually, no. 12 of the last 14 national champions.
We don't need to go. We have to get to this Arizona deep dive. We need to get to this Arizona.
We're going to have to pass. We're going to have to do this on
pass.
we can't do their deep dive in 10. Can we?
All right. No, let's do it. Let's save it for Sunday.
All right. We're going to put on the Arizona.
Let's talk about Bryan Harsin.
All right. So Joe, over the last couple, actually, let's talk about our good friends over at HomeField Apparel. Let's reset. Joe's sweating over there. I can see it on his brow from all the anger that he has right now. Let's talk about our good friends over at HomeField Apparel. We'll come back and talk about Bryan Harsin next. Stay with us.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by HomeField Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
This has got to be the best name that we've read from a commenter, Pooter Williams. Old Pooter. Thanks, Pooter. It says USC will get the ball out fast. We ain't worried about him. That's got to be that would have been an all-time football name, Pooter. Look, he's going down the field one gas step at a time.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Looking Pooter.
Bryan Harsin, Joe, the former Auburn and Boise State head coach, has been on social media and very much being very
antagonistic,
a very good word. He was going after the COVID vaccine. We're not getting into that.
No.
But he did go after SEC Michael Bratton on Twitter, saying that, look, there was a thing that was quoted about Auburn and basically said that Mike is a liar. And he's been going after a lot of reporters and media. Your thoughts on the former Auburn head coach?
Yeah, he's gone on this tirade. Not only was it a quote of a graphic of information that wasn't even SEC Mike's like info. It was taken from like a scouting report from another outlet or something along those lines.
That is correct.
And then he also went after JD Pickell. He also he had this one quote today that was, stories like these from local quote journalists erode confidence in the media. Not one point made can be sustained, and everything is completely opinion based. It's devious and unprofessional. And then in the process, he's been getting shit on left and right. I feel like Bryan Harsin is one of those people that just doesn't know how to look in the mirror and really understand who he is. There's a reason
why he crumbled at Auburn.
Yeah, because he was so goddamn stubborn. And I would love for Bryan Harsin to chime in on this and be like, oh, what? You're just making these assumptions. He was so goddamn stubborn at Auburn to not adapt in the ways that he needed to in recruiting, in just general scheme, roster building, that he got canned and kicked out of there quicker than anybody that we've seen. Like, he needs to really reflect, man, instead of casting stones in a glass house the way that he is.
I will defend Bryan Harsin for one thing that I think is a thing that's happening to him. I think that the way that Auburn did him was wrong. Okay, like the thing with Klesi, by the way, shout out to our girl Klesi. Okay.
All right. All right.
The thing that happened with Klesi, I think, was very unprofessional by the people of Auburn. Okay. And I think it painted Bryan Harsin in a picture that might not all be true. However, going on social media, so, I mean, he hasn't been hired anywhere. Nobody's taken him. But him going on social media, acting and saying a lot of the things that he's doing is doing absolutely nothing but proving the point that Auburn fans have had about him, right? And I will also say he's had a very interesting run with the media, right? Like, remember, I think it was his first spring at Auburn. He was throwing out hats to the media, and they ridiculed him for him giving them stuff, and they were like, it's so unprofessional. And I'm just like, I do sympathize with Bryan because, Joe, as someone that has children, someone that has a wife, for Auburn to leak something that was wound up proven to be false, I think is a very bad thing. But when he's out here acting like a child, okay, that really proves a lot of points. Now, he quote tweets SEC Mike here, okay, in reference to an anonymous quote about Hugh Freeze. Ironically, it's about Auburn. Okay. And what he's really upset about is about people being high on Hugh Freeze at Auburn, how he's recruiting. That's what he's really mad at. And basically saying coaches don't do any of this stuff. No, Bryan, you don't do any of this stuff. You didn't get out in the public and make friends, yourself or your wife. And Joe, when you're a head coach, your wife has to be the biggest support system that you have. Joe, we know Nick Saban's wife's first name. Like, Miss Terry's a big deal. When Tyrion Arnold got drafted, what did Tyrion Arnold and Nick Saban was on the podium and said, I would come home, at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and Tyrion Arnold was sitting in my kitchen with my wife playing bridge. Like, that is the biggest thing that I think Bryan Harsin missed. And, Joe, I will tell you this. It's the biggest thing that he missed about the South. Okay? The community here is a big deal. We know our neighbors. We hang out with our neighbors. We love our neighbors. And I don't think that his introverted style, okay, proved to be good anywhere around here. I do think that he's making this worse on himself than he needs to.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, I feel like we never was the last time we heard from Bryan Harsin or saw him anything? I
Well,
would have
he's
even
quoting COVID-19 vaccine issues from 2021.
Yeah, I'm more yes, that happened. And
But that
the
goes to-
comments
but
of
that
trying to
goes to
like dunk on JD Piquel, who's like probably one of the most likable guys in media, is probably the most positive people in college
makes
football
fun
media.
of himself, talks about how he was a 2-star coming, playing at Baylor or wherever it was.
He's like the opposite version of me because I think me and him are the same. I'm like the anti JD Piquel. That's the way that
So you're
I'd
not
frame
nice
it.
to people.
You've tuned into you're on this show every single day, Blake. You know that I'm an asshole and I'm a piece of shit. This is why people tune in. They tune in for the hate. But this quote that we're referring to was him denying that an anonymous coach would make a comment saying that the current roster, despite it being weak, is still a lot better than anything that Bryan Harsin had.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, like and I also think that he's very ignorant to the fact that the SEC coaches talk a lot of shit. Right?
Joe, they're all in a newsflash. You know that they're all in a group text together.
Yeah, that we talked about. Oh no, I don't think we talked about that.
No, we didn't.
We almost did.
They're all in a group text together. And the funny thing about that is they said that which ones, so for example, Kirby was asked about the group text. You think Bryan Harsin was well received in that group text?
No, probably not.
Hell
Based on the way that he's
Hell
acting.
No. He was the guy that nobody wanted to be. You know who they say they love the most? All of them. Even Josh Heupel doesn't. But all of them think Eli Drinkwitz is funny as hell.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
But it's true. They said it. Kirby talked about it. And then Kirby said that he'll call, now that Nick's out of the game, like his relationship with Brian Kelly has picked up. He said that, him and Steve had obviously the same connection in Nick, so they talk a lot. Nobody was talking to your ass because nobody likes you. You're an asshole.
Oh, we should clip that.
I mean, but it's the truth.
No, just the end of that. Like that would be a good soundboard drop. Nobody likes talking to you.
You want me to get clipped so bad and get rid of
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that to be on like a soundboard, on your soundboard, is just hit it every so often.
Okay, so let me just say it here. Bryan Harsin is an asshole.
That's not what I was getting at, but okay, if you want to double down. I mean, do we need any more proof than the way that he's acting on social? And we've got nothing to gain or to lose because he's not even a coach anymore. What is he?
I don't know. Maybe he's coaching tennis. Pickleball's a big thing now.
Sure. He's got a potato farm. Is he from Boise?
I have no idea where he's from. Where is he from?
Let's look it up before we get out of here. Wait, I'm looking it up. Let's see. He was born in Boise, Idaho. He played football at Boise. Yeah, he never coached outside of the furthest that he got to the South was Arkansas State, where he was the head coach for a year.
Oh.
Why would they think that this was a good idea?
I don't know. And you know what's even worse about that? They hated Gus Malzahn. And Gus is, and everybody loves Gus in Orlando. Everybody.
I can't. Yeah, they
They
are so bad at handling their coaching changes because, I mean, I love Hugh Freeze, but like that was also received very, very poorly, and that was a goddamn mess for a different reason.
Yeah. All right. We'll finally get to Arizona, but we'll just have to wait another episode to do it. Yeah. Until then, good show. I love when we argue. I love when the veins in your neck start popping out and you get so mad.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll see y'all on Sunday. Y'all have a good one. Peace.